In order to understand the declaration, it's better that we read and study its meaning. So we're going to do that today. But we're going to start by defining terms, so to speak, and get some concepts in there so when we get there, it'll become even clearer rather than me explaining it completely during the reading. The ordering of society and the foundation of our civilization rests on a virtuous and moral understanding of relationships and authority. What's one position in relation to another? What is the nature of that relationship? Let's set this up a little bit with a few words. There's words that start with the prefix super, like supervisor, superintendent, supreme, and a word we hear often enough, sovereign. That sovereign part is from the word that gives us super and everything else. So sovereign is to be super, which is above, more, and over. So reigning over, being of the authority over, that's what sovereign is. And that's important to know as we go. Now, also there's sub. Sub is not exactly the opposite, but it does mean things that are put below, under, brought under, like subcontract, suburban. I grabbed a few words so you can get a little bit idea. We use it all the time. Submerse, submarine. Now, if anybody's a World War II aircraft aficionado, they know that a Spitfire is the supermarine. It's because it's above the water as opposed to submarine below the water. So with those things, it's important to use how we know about that to discuss relationships and authority. And we're going to see how that works with our government and with the Declaration and things like that. Now, of course, important to know the difference between a nation and a government. A nation is a set of peoples, a group or society, and a government is its organizational structure. A nation has a government. It isn't a government. The Declaration teaches us about that relationship. Now, we've got a few other things I want to go over real quick because they come to the heart of how we understand our relationship with God and how we understand the Bible, prophecy, glory, and salvation, I think. It's understanding what a thing is. That seems very odd and a little abstract. I'm talking about anything, a person, an object, the world, and our Father God. As we see in many passages of the Bible, God's essence, his attributes, speak to who he is. Like in the 86th Psalm, "But you, O Lord, are God full of compassion and gracious, long-suffering, and abundant in mercy and truth." These are only parts of what God is. How about other things like understanding some things much more mundane? Water is wet. That's the attribute of water, right? So you know what water is, its essence. Ice is solid, it is cold. Now let's take a look at things that may have parts to it. A cheeseburger. A cheeseburger has to have cheese in it to be a cheeseburger. If you order a cheeseburger and it doesn't have cheese in it, it is not a cheeseburger. It's the idea of attributes of a thing. I had it explained to me by using a chair as a reference, but if a chair has no legs, is it a chair? Okay, that's another one. But here's the thing. Look at yourself. Think of yourself. All the yourselfness that there is. Because you do it all the time. It's what you are. It is the inside and outside of you as you act through the day and night, when you pray, when you're angry, when you're happy. It's a real identity, a completeness, a nature of you that exists for all things. But as a created being from God, there's a lot to it. And there's a lot more to it than we really think about all day, I think. But sometimes we can get a little too serious about it. But we need to pay attention to that today because we're dealing with an important topic, the Declaration and other things like that. Now, I think, and this is the last thing I'm going to get us to help you understand some things about the Declaration, because it's not just about the Declaration, but our entire efforts as citizens, brothers and sisters. Most people have a problem with the idea of infinity. Christians are better than most in getting the concept of infinity. Everlasting. They know what that means. They see it in the Bible frequently and things like it. But I think we lost the full understanding what it means when we were cast out, when we now surely shall die, Genesis 2:17, because we lost some things then. And part of it is the conceptualizing the reality of eternity and infinity. It's important, because when we're praying, that's what we're doing, is being in that infinite place with the infinite God. So, I'm going to have you wonder a little bit about what this is for. So pull out, if you were able to get one of these, if you have a neighbor that does. We're going to talk a little bit about math without numbers. Math without numbers. And we're going to use math without numbers. Geometry is math without numbers. Dale's laughing at me over here. Because Euclid, I guess, was challenged. Let's do math without numbers. And he came up with geometry. Did a pretty good job. We're going to do a little bit of that here today. There's a wonderful book. I wasn't going to talk about this much, but we'll get to it. There's a wonderful book from the 19th century called Flatland. Don't read about it. Do not watch a YouTube. Get the book and read it, because you can only understand it as Edwin Abbott wrote it to really understand what we're talking about when we're dealing with infinity and dimensions. Take a look at this. Look at it this way. Kind of make it so you're looking across and see a line. Can you look across and it looks like a line? Now, tip a little bit. Ooh, it's not a line. This is like right out of the book Flatland. But the idea is to understand dimensions. This flat thing represents 2 dimensions today, even though it does have a thickness. But we're going to throw the thickness out just for the concept. So, what happens if something happens to this? How can we make this have a 3rd dimension? Make a loop. Ooh, suddenly it's 3-dimensional. Even if you look at it as if it's a circle, it still has an up and down, where it didn't before. Now we have 3 dimensions. Can we express a 4th dimension? Yes, we can. So you can conceptualize it goes further and further and further. It's hard for us because we are in a 3-dimensional world, essentially. Take the loop, and when it comes to join, turn it a half turn. And now that's this weird squiggle. For those of you who already know, this is referred to as a Mobius strip, or a Mobius curve, after the mathematician who described it. Guess what just happened? That surface that was 2-dimensional, that we made 3-dimensional, that had 2 sides, now only has 1 side. Because take a look. Run your finger around and suddenly it just keeps going and going back and forth and doesn't stop. This is an infinite loop. This is representing a 4th dimension in 3 dimensions. That's the idea. And this is only a strip. What's this, an inch or so wide? What if you took, I don't know, this carpet and did it? Now take something that's from Chino Valley to the Pacific Ocean and do the Mobius twist. Do that with all sorts of ways of thinking, and you'll get an idea, I think, a little bit closer of the infinite, eternity, because there are more than those dimensions. Now, here's the thing. We talk about natural and supernatural. One thing that I think the world tries to press upon us is that the supernatural is not real. That supernatural is above us, but it is still real. And there's God, because he is real. Remember, there's an after the after, there's a before the before, there's a beyond the beyond. Also, a way to conceptualize infinity is thinking with language. And here's the one is like the Mobius strip. There's a behind the behind. Eternity is real. It's very real. So what's that got to do with the Declaration? It has to do with eternal things, foundational principles. God is all, God is everywhere, God is always, and the attributes of God are forever. And as created beings, our chore, our joy, our responsibility is to be like that and understand that and do that. And now we'll get to the Declaration, I think. How about that? So, understand the Declaration was written by some pretty smart guys, very well educated. You know, they taught Greek and Latin in school when they were in school. When's the last time you found a Greek class in any K through 12 school? Now, in my high school, we did have a Latin class, but, one Latin class. I don't know if my high school still has that or not. But that was normal for people to read in the Greek, to be educated at that point. Now, Augustine of Hippo, one of the great early church fathers and thinkers and writers, his education was average, not really super big. He didn't read the Greek, he only read Latin, because, and I think he got a lot, quite right about understanding the Trinity. Now, here we're looking at people who are reading in the Greek. They're reading Latin, they're writing it, they're thinking about these big eternal concepts, because that's normal education at a time before our current time for many, many people. So that's who wrote this. They're reading the scriptures. They're understanding their place in the world, and they're trying to provide us some information about relationships, authority, government, human and divine nature, and eternal things, because it was prioritized in their mind. And that was their effort here. So let's go to the Declaration. Everybody's got a booklet, I imagine, because we handed them out. Everyone should have one. Take a look at it, because we're going through it, and it flips. This Declaration and a Constitution. It kind of is upside down book. We're going to start in the Declaration. I've seen Declaration and Constitution booklets written where the Constitution's first, like, nay, this is incorrect. The Declaration is first, not just in contemporary terms, but it's also first in thought. Because my concept here is the Declaration is a work of thoughtful philosophy and things from the heart. Constitution's a rule book, and that's from the head. Okay, so it makes a big difference. Something has to be the foundation to get us further along, to understand how the head can work with anything. It's got to have the heart and those foundational concepts in place, and that's what the Constitution does. Or excuse me, the Declaration does. So, July 4th, 1776. Today is July 3rd. The Continental Congress actually agreed to do something like this yesterday, 250 years ago, on July 2nd, which is the day that John Adams wrote to Abigail saying, "This'll be the day we all cheer and whoop it up and etc." No, it's 4th of July. It's because between saying, yes, we need to do this, a committee met. Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and 2 other of the members of the Continental Congress met in committee to write this. Because it may have been drafted, but the committee wrote it. Drafted by Jefferson, but completely, well, a lot of book writers know that editors may have a lot to do with the final product, all right? Well, there was a pretty good bunch of editors there with Franklin, Adams, and all. So that happened like today. And then tomorrow, the 4th, they eventually have got one written out to say, that's the one, let's publish. So when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which had connected them with another. One people, are they one people? The idea is they're declaring nationhood here by saying so. It's not that they don't really have an affinity for the motherland, it's just, no, we're one people now. And that's what we need to do here. And dissolving the political bands, like we're cutting the strings, old King George. And to assume among the powers of the earth, because we are talking about earthly powers here, in this case, the political bands, those are earthly powers, the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. The blessings of liberty are part of you, that essence of the created ones that we all are. So it's entitled to us to be able to have those liberties and express those liberties in a way that I will explain further we're going to be separate but equal. That has bad connotations in a horrible Supreme Court case. But here, the idea is Great Britain, you're Great Britain. This place, our people, this nation is now separate. And now we rise up to no longer be sub them. We're equal, but separate. And then a decent respect, isn't that nice of them? It is decent, I'd agree with that. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So that's kind of like, okay, now we're on a full gallop at this point. Because what's going to follow is the reasoning behind it. And there's 2 areas here. We're going to talk about the philosophical basis for not only the separation, but for government. And then we're going to talk about the grievances, the findings of fact, if you will, that they have listed out later. Now notice we had nature and nature's God. That's just one of our several words, terms used to describe our Lord, our Father. Nature's God, we're going to see Creator in a moment. There's also the supreme judge of the world, and then divine providence. That's another attribute of the essence of God expressed here. So, we hold these truths to be self-evident. They're clear as the nose on my face, unless you got your eyes shut. There's a lot of people who have their eyes shut. That all men are created equal. Now, I gave this talk many times to Boy Scouts, and I always stop here. It's like, created equal? What are we talking about? You know, I'm sitting usually, we're about 3 or 4 feet away from each other. Usually chair to chair, no table in between. And he's got a declaration, I've got a declaration, and we're talking. we read that. So what do you mean created equal? What's that all about? Like, if they're blonde, curly hair, it's like, this difference, fat, tall, short, da-da-da. What's this equal thing? We're different. No, it's a different kind of equality. As those created by God, we have a moral equality without a doubt. And that's where this is headed, understanding that level of equality, rather than, I don't shave, you shave. That's different. But that's not about this kind of equality. So all men are created, there's that part again, equal, that they're endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. Endowed. It's been given to you in the creation that this is your essence, your you-ness as a created being. You're endowed with those certain unalienable rights. Not inalienable, it is unalienable. There's a difference. Look it up. Because the idea here is the you-ness, the thingness, the everything essence about you being a created human. If you tried to pluck, or even could pluck a little bit of something out of that, you would no longer be, not only you would not be created of God. It is you. That's why I talk about this whole big idea of all these attributes and things about you. So these blessings of liberty, these certain unalienable rights, are unalienable. They can't be taken out, period. Otherwise, no, they just can't be taken out. That's a period. Now, among these, meaning that there's a long list of things other than these three, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we've heard many times reiterated. There's a lot more to you, your rights, your blessings, and everything that is you than those three things. But they're pretty important, and they're important about talking about this relationships and authority thing. Okay? That's why they're in here. And there's two more. Actually one more. We'll talk about it in a moment. That to secure these rights, here I stop with the scout and tell him, this is the most important thing you're going to read today. So listen to it, because we're going to read it a few times. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Mic drop moment. That's it. Why do we have governments? To secure these rights. That's it. Like I said, mic drop. That's all you need to really know. Why do we have government? To secure these rights. What rights? All of the unalienable rights of our created selves. Working alone or in groups, it's all ours, and it's all to be secured by getting together and putting something there that secures them. Government. So it's the only job, the only purpose. So I'll keep going, because I think you got that. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, which means that if there's ever been a time to use this cliche, we're all in it together, we're all in it together, then this is the time, because if you're not participating, that's a problem. I used to say, if you don't vote, don't complain. It's that sort of thing. If we're not giving consent, silence is consent. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, meaning it's destructive of securing our rights, got to remember that part, right? It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government. Gosh, have we ever done that before? Take a look. What year is this? 1776? Flip over your booklet. We're going to get to that other document, the Constitution. Keep going. It's got a few pages. It's a little longer. Rule books usually are. And we're going to get to page 16 here. Page 16, the Constitution booklet here. What year is that? It's the year of our Lord, Anno Domini, for you Latinists, AD, 1787. How many years is that after 1776? 11, yeah, it's 11 years. So what did we do for 11 years? Let's go back to the Declaration. Did we sit there and go, yeah, we can govern ourselves with no structure? Yeah, that works. You know, Madison said, you know, if we were angels, we wouldn't need it, but we aren't, so there you are. We are, it is instituted among men. So, what did we do? We had the Articles of Confederation. Everybody's going, oh, I remember that civics class. That's what that thing was. Well, guess what? Didn't work. It did not secure our rights. So, guess what? We had a right, the people did, to alter or abolish it, and we did. And we instituted new government. That's the Constitution. So the Constitution is an expression of what we already said in the Declaration, that we can do this. If it's not securing our rights, we can take that other one, toss it in the circle file, and put something else together. And we did, and that's the Constitution. We'll get to that in a minute. So what it's going to do, that new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Ooh, safety. We had the pursuit of happiness. Now we have safety in there. It's capital S. They did that a lot when they're trying to make a point about a particular word or concept. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, safety. Number 4. Because we all want a little bit of that. So that's what the new government had to do. It had to do all of those things, and it had to be based on principles, essentially the principles that we're talking about here, in order to be something that could secure our rights. Because the articles, well, articles are a mess, if anybody's studied them. They're a mess. The Congress under the Confederation was a mess. It was just a mess. It had to go. And we agreed on that. Now, continuing on, prudence, another concept of our essence. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. We do light and transient kind of like on a daily basis, and we got to watch out. What's that mean, light and transient? Transient is not, you know, our unhomed, homeless, whatever. It's things that come and go. They don't stay, they're not permanent. Oh, I know, like fashions and fads. Those are transient things. But there's a lot of other things, and conceptually, in political discourse, that are pretty transient. And they're usually awfully light. Light meaning tiny in thought, have the basis and principles of a feather, that sort of light and transient. We can talk about things like that later after the talk. So, and accordingly, all experience hath shewn, love that 18th century English, hath shown, we would say today, that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. We are so terribly habit-driven. It's okay. I don't have to itch that itch. I don't have to take out the trash. It's okay. I do that at other time. I'll do that another time. Is it lazy? Yeah, it's a little bit lazy, I think. But take a look at that again. Mankind are more disposed to suffer. while evils are sufferable. In other words, right before you're like dead. Then to right themselves, to correct themselves, to make things upstanding and correct by abolishing those forms to which they become accustomed. Customs. But it's the custom that we do that. It's like, yeah, but it's stupid. We need to change that. Light and transient cause sounds like to me. So let's get this thing together and base it on the principles where we have the blessings of liberty from Almighty God. Then we're just going to transition here in this paragraph to working on those things that they were most aggrieved about from the government of King George and the structure of King George and his government. Because take a look at this. The structure of those relationships and authority we have in Great Britain: God, the king, the subjects. All right? Our idea was we have God, the people, government, sovereign, created with sovereignty, and subject. That's the American plan. Instead of God, a king, a sovereign, and his subjects. That's the big diff here. That's the big difference. So when a long train of abuses and usurpations, in other words, doing stuff they oughtn't to have done because we should have been doing it to start with, usurpation, pursuing invariably to the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. So taking away those unalienable rights that you have because you are subject to a man between you and God. Despotism. Definition right there. Because of that, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Securing those rights, huh? That's what government's for. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. I'm actually going to stop here for the rest. It's a list, findings of fact. Whereas, and the therefore is independence. That's what we're after here. Because you didn't do it right and you messed us up. And we've finally gotten to the point where we were accustomed to it, but we can't suffer that any longer. We've got to make changes. That's what that's for. So I'm going to talk a little bit more, I'm closing the book, and talk a little bit about those rights and responsibilities. Because the essence of my talk to Scouts was, because it was a sign-off for first class in the handbook, was talk to someone, and there's a list of the sorts of people that you needed to ask to talk to you about it, your rights and responsibilities as a citizen. So being Boy Scouts of America, of course, we're talking about American citizenship. But there's similar things in scouting worldwide, understanding that aspect of patriotic devotion. So I'm going to have the ushers come forward, please. I need, 4 is good. And take the baskets, and then you're going to hand out whatever anyone wants to take. There are 2 kinds of coins in these baskets. There's $50, which we still mint. And then I have the no longer minted large dollar coins. Go ahead, pass them around. Take whichever one, or take one of each, maybe just one. We got a decent-sized crowd here. It's like, how much money did I spend? There's a lot in there. Take the one that makes most sense to you, and I may tell you which ones, when we're done passing them out, if you pick this special one. There's a lot of special ones in there, actually. Now, myself, I do this talk with the Scouts with a silver dollar. I've got a peace dollar here, which is the 1922 and later after the Morgan dollars. And it shows on the front liberty. While we're passing out, I'll vamp a little bit. It's got liberty in the front. And it looks like, wow, the Statue of Liberty because of the shining aura of her crown. And on the back of the peace dollar, the silver dollar, is a landed eagle. So the wings aren't out. Often you see the wings are in. It's on a rock on which is inscribed peace. This is after World War I. It's important. And that's the symbolism of America in peacetime. We only bring out our claws and our wings when we have to. And that's the importance of that if you have seen one of those before. But sorry, I didn't have a couple rolls of those to hand out today. All right. So, has everybody got a coin? We're almost done there. Good. You'll find if you chose a $50, those are special because we do still mint those. You can go to the bank and get them. If you have a good bank, you're able to go in and I can get a few rolls of them so I could hand them out today. And when I asked, do you have any Eisenhower dollars? They said, sure. How many do you want? So I got a number of them to hand out here today as well. So who has an Eisenhower dollar? Yeah, I figured. Well, guess what? Take a look at it. What year is it? Some of them are other dates, but most of the ones that I put in the baskets are bicentennial dollars. What's on the back of a bicentennial dollar? Because it's not the eagle and the moon in the back and all that. It's Liberty Bell. Yeah, that's pretty good, huh? Now, who has a $50? Excellent. We're going to start talking about citizenship with the $50. John F. Kennedy, president in the early 60s, was son of a large family. He was of the Roman Rite, a Christian, and had a lot to think about in his travels. He lived in London during the war, part of the time of the war, and then he served because his father was the ambassador to the court of St. James, the American ambassador to Britain. So he kind of knew a lot of people. He experienced a lot of things because his father, Joseph Kennedy, and President Roosevelt didn't always see eye to eye. If you've done some history reading, I'm probably understating that a little bit. However, after the war, Kennedy spent some time as a correspondent. I believe it was the Hearst organization in Europe, and he wrote a diary while he was doing that. And those were only released to the public in the 1990s. And in the summer of 1945, John Kennedy wrote this, not necessarily to share, but to keep his thoughts to him on paper. Mr. Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, has contributed to the end of capitalism in our country, although he would probably argue the point at some length. He has done this not through the laws which he sponsored or were passed during his presidency, but rather through the emphasis he put on rights rather than responsibilities. Now, everyone's pretty familiar with Kennedy's inaugural address, which includes ask not, what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That's parallel expression of what he wrote here in 1945. And a couple years later, he was speaking and said this: "But this nation was not founded solely on citizens' rights. Equally important, though too often not discussed, is the citizens' responsibility. Our privileges can be no greater than our obligations. The protection of our rights, securing our rights," an echo there. The protection of our rights can endure no longer than the performance of our responsibilities. Whew. Sorry, just got chills. Run up and down my arms here, because that's just it. That's just it. Now, who has the Eisenhower dollar? I had many things to say. One that I was hesitant to provide because he's being very off the cuff, I'll put it that way, but it's really good to share in private about being an American. But here's what he said about citizenship: "A people that values its privileges above its principles soon loses both." You may have heard that before. That's Eisenhower. And Eisenhower, who was the supreme commander during World War II, gosh, John Kennedy's commander, because he was serving at that time. And then, of course, Kennedy was his successor to the White House. But Eisenhower also said, "To be true to one's own freedom is, in essence, to honor and respect the freedom of all others." Rights and responsibilities. These coins, hold up your coin, look at it. It has two sides. It has a front. Numismatists, coin collectors, call that the obverse, the front. And then the back is the reverse. So you've got President Kennedy on the front of one of those coins, and on the back is, what's on the back of the Kennedy? It's the seal of the President of the United States, which is the eagle resplendent in many ways, in martial splendor in a lot of ways, wherein the peace dollar shows the eagle opposite. But that's America. That's good. It's usable. It's practical. And then on the Eisenhower dollar, since you have a bicentennial versus the regular ones, you have something else on the back. But you have Dwight D. Eisenhower, a Christian from Kansas, who definitely brought forward his faith in the way that he thought, both as a commander of people that would die, as well as a commander, a servant of people that were living as president. But what does that mean? Two sides, one thing. It's a coin. Citizenship is that. Citizenship is one thing. It has two sides, just like these coins: rights and responsibilities. And that's really where I was always going with the Scouts, so they kind of get the oh moment, which is pretty cool. When first class, they're usually somewhere 12, 14 years old maybe. And that's pretty neat moment, because that's important to know. Securing our rights, that's why we have government, but it's all way more than that, because it's citizenship. We are citizens of this nation. We are not citizens of this government. We are citizens of amongst the people who are also citizens. Remember that relationship of authority. God, sovereign. The created people, also sovereign, together and individually. And then government is a servant. And we're a servant to each other, to God, and the government organization is a servant to secure our rights, the blessings of liberty, so that when we continue to be a nation and not dissolve into light and transient cause garbage. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed what I had to say. And there's so much more. I'd like you to take a moment to think if you want to take notes, because my mouth is open. You should be taking notes. Is the book Flatland, I recommended before, is very, very good for conceiving and getting down into your heart eternity, outside of the Bible. But this Edwin Abbott was a mathematician and a theologian. That's why he wrote it. So you could see this sort of thing and make it so it's very real. The concept is completely knowable. It's completely knowable. And every prayer, every praise given and received is an expression of that eternity. So always do that. Paul says to pray unceasingly. You have to have a prayerful mind at all times. Even if you're not bent on one knee in a solemn moment, if you're prayerful in all of your actions, that's a responsible thing to do, and that's part of that citizenship as well. So the other thing is, I'd like to have you pay attention to two other things. Recently, Associate Justice Clarence Thomas spoke at the University in Austin, I believe, in Texas. And if you have not seen that, it is a grand expression of America through the Declaration as it is expressed in his words. In addition, I'd also lend your attention to a memorial speech given by our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, about America just last year, I believe. And I can show you where that can be found. And the last is, 100 years ago, our president, President Coolidge, gave a speech on the 150th anniversary of the Declaration, and it is for the ages. You must read it. And I am done.